Good morning, everyone. Just letting some additional people that are just joining us in. So just wanted to let you know we are here. Just letting some, last minute people make sure everybody's here for the start. All right. Well, good afternoon. Thank you all for joining and being willing to take some time out of this Sunday afternoon and just kind of talk about WSLO and where we are and where we're trying to get to, and hopefully leave this conversation with a little bit more understanding of where we're going and how each of you can be part of that. So one of the things, we do want this to be a conversation, so it's not going to be just, us, hey, this is what's happening kind of thing, but more interaction. So be sure to, if you want to raise your hand or unmute yourself, you're welcome to be part of this conversation. One of the biggest things we want to remember is that we're here to respect each other's point of view and make intentional space so people can be heard in this conversation. So please speak from your own direct experience and not from other people's perspectives. And that way we can be clear that everyone is heard. Make sense? Good. Good. Well, so WSLO has been around a while. It was WSMLO, starting out 1983, producing the Washington State Leather Men's Contest. And in '89, the first Washington State Miss Leather Contest happened, but it was done by another group, by Vic Strump. And then in 2000, the two contests combined, and the title was sold to WSMLO. 2014 was our first Washington State Boot Black. 2019, we changed the name to be more inclusive and it's just the Washington State Leather Organization now. And now this year we have our first mixed title holder. So there's been a lot of expansion over time, from where things started with those 5 people back 40 years ago. One of the things back in 92, 93, this organization is what started the Seattle Pride Parade and the Leather Week, and they had a softball league for a while as fundraising. So this organization was a big part of the community. And we want to get back to bringing the community together as well, as we move forward. Anyone have experience from back in that has been around the community longer that they would like to share of what WSLO was or WSMLO in their lives back? No, yes, maybe. Go ahead, Ken.
Yeah, looking around, I don't think any of us here probably predate about 2000.
Mm-hmm.
I know Kelly and I have been around that long, and a few other people, Dave and Will, but we don't go, none of us go back much further than that,
Mm-hmm.
which is still half of the time.
Right. It's still quite a ways back though. So
Yeah.
what was your experience when you back in 2000?
The first contest I went to would have been 2001, I think.
Mm-hmm.
So it was just the Mr. and Ms. Titles. Pretty much all through the last 20 years. It's been uncommon for the women's title to have, or the Ms. title to have more than one contestant. There's only been a few times that there have been two. The men's title has ranged between 1 and about 5 contestants over the years, varying.
Mm-hmm.
My first contest was, I think, 93, where Anthony Walt won. You know, for a long time, with so much involvement from the CUF owners in the organization, it tended to be more of a organization that supported the activities of the CUF and their owners, rather than a true community group. But since they've moved on, it has become more and more organized and ran by the community itself.
Anybody else want to share your experience pre-2023? No? Okay. All right. Well, there's been a lot of changes in the last, I would say, last few years. I know that I had once joined the board in 2018 and was on the board for 2 years at that point. And there was a lot of going-ons within the community. There's been a lot of expansion of people coming into our community, into the Washington State community, and a lot of, just a second, 2 seconds. Okay, so a lot of expansion with people moving in, a lot of expansion with recognizing different language. Just there's been a lot of change, and then of course 2020 hit, and then we kind of went into this unknown of COVID. So back in November, I was asked to join back on to the WSLO board, and then in December ended up accepting the president position. Toby decided to kind of step back and take a pause, taking care of health and other things, and he was the president of the board for 6 years, and so held quite a bit of time and commitment into this organization, and we appreciate that, because we wouldn't be where we are if he wasn't there. So at that time there were 8 board members, including myself. By January we were down to 5, and the contest was 3 months away, so there was a lot of work to be done to get that moving. And, you know, there was work done prior to that. But it was time to do all of those things. In that, WSLO made some mistakes. Not, you know, anything that anyone be surprised by. Even mistakes were made at the contest itself, where we could have done things better, could have done things differently, and we didn't. So since the contest, we had 2 additional board members resign from the board. And so we took a pause. We took a pause to kind of figure out, what are we doing? Like, are we hearing the members of our community that we are supposed to be here to help? What is WSLO's role here in the community? And a lot of the conversations that I had, I really thank everyone that talked to me, had coffee with me, sent emails, and really took the time to give me their perspective in how we want to move forward. And a lot of those conversations were around people feeling unheard. Decisions were made without people being given full ability to speak up for themselves, without people having the full story. Things went to the social media network of vague booking that created nothing more than more of a divide. So we really want to make sure that moving forward, that we are welcoming people into the community and making sure that everyone's heard and where we're going to go. There were lots of questions around, you know, what happened and things. And I felt like putting a post out should just say, okay, this is kind of how things went, would only stir that pot more and not really give people a chance to actually ask their questions and actually be heard. So that's why we are here today, in part. And also because, you know, we have a future to move with. So is there any questions about where things are, you know, any questions from anyone that is here today? Thomas?
Yes, thank you. Clarification, you said you were asked in November. I believe you were asked around July, June, August at one of the first WSO socials, because Toby was talking with you. Furthermore, I would like to ask you, did you have to submit a board application when you applied?
So Toby talked to me about coming back, but I wasn't asked to come back until November in terms of officially asked, hey, would you do this? We talked about it, but I've been talking about rejoining the board off and on. It was a matter of, am I going to run for the title or am I going to come back to the board? And no, I was not required to submit an application. I have never submit. I mean, I don't know that WSLO has an actual board application to submit that I've seen. So, Thomas.
That's completely contrary to what WSLO has posted on Facebook about asking for new board members recently, about 4 or 5 months ago. There was an application. Furthermore, this goes back to the past, a difference of standards between friends of board members or board members that past board members, no requirement come onto the board without submitting any application. But yet ask new people or people you don't know to resubmit applications. It's unjust standard. First of all, especially when an application is given to someone to ask for a future vision, and these new board members who were past board members aren't required to give a future vision for the organization. It's very disturbing. And to come here and say, well, we're just taking a stop and a break, you have to identify this, and this needs a change in your bylaws. Your bylaws need to significantly change to address these issues, because it's
Absolutely.
unfair to the other community members that are coming in here that have no transparency or honesty about how these application processes are working and how people are getting a waiver through that process.
Understood. I know we met when we met in December, when that was one of the things that we talked about, is changing our bylaws and updating them to include not just how you become a board member, but how long you can be in office and how long, like there's a lot to the WSLO board bylaws that need to be changed. You're not wrong. Sister Berna?
So, I haven't read the WSLO bylaws. First, I would first clarify, is that actual term of the bylaws or is it part of the protocols procedure? Because there's two different things. Second thing is, I would say, I walk into community organizing with a tender heart and recognizing that we can't do everything that exactly follows all the guidelines all the time. Real. I work with one of the organizations that has the most regimented membership processes of the entire community. I would ask to take a second to think a little bit about how can we move forward and not necessarily sit there and try to retell the past, rewind the past, because the past is in the past. The legal requirements, under Washington state law is that it does not necessarily require you to always follow what the bylaws are, unless you actually want to involve a lawyer in the whole situation. It's not necessarily something that is worth anyone's time, because the AG's office is the one who has any real serious control over this situation, and they're not going to walk into a small organization that has to follow the 990, that only has enough money, makes enough money to file a 990 postcard. It's not worth their time. So it's good to have a high standard, I think, and I would say go forward. Yes, totally makes sense. But until that process is requested, that it really doesn't. We really need to take a tender heart and think about what's going to happen in the future. And I also would call in anyone who does have concern about that here's a great opportunity to take on some of the work to build these member application processes out, because working on a board and having to try to steer an organization, I get apprehensive when I have someone else tell me I have to do something and that they're not willing to do it and to be involved in that process itself.
Thank you for sharing your thoughts. Jim and Ken?
Yeah, you mentioned that there were, I think, I don't recall how many board members you said that there were when you came on in November, and then by January you were at 5, and now you're at 3. Is this something that, and what does that indicate? Burnout, misset expectations, a bad environment for retaining board members? Do you have any thoughts on that? Because it's kind of a concern.
The people that left the board in November, December had their own personal reasons. One was looking, burnout. One was work, ability to make the commitment to being, as active as the expectations, especially going into the contest. Just their own lives changed, and the balance was not there. There was, I would say, with one of them spoke of just things that happened on the board prior that made them decide not to no longer be part of it. But that was, I mean, those were all things prior to me coming on. So I can't really speak to what happened or how it happened, to why they made those decisions.
Thank
Sorry.
you.
Sorry, Kelly?
Yeah, I'll put in my personal reason for having left the board was there has been recently a large amount of rhetoric around the men's community and Seattle Men in Leather particularly, and a lot of bad mouthing without a lot of facts or accountability to statements being made. And having served on the board for 6 months, I actually left the board because just the sheer amount of animosity from some of the board members and speaking in regards to SML when I was in the room and they knew I was actually on the board at the time, that I just couldn't move forward continuing to serve on the WSLO board with that amount of animosity going on. It's something that needs to get rectified and fixed, and make sure that it's nice that we're opening up our community and we're getting mix and trans and a lot of other and Black involvement, but in doing so, it can't be at the expense of the men's community and SML. If there are particular people in SML or in the men's community that are problematic, address them as such, but don't make SML the scapegoat for bad behavior from individuals, and stop, just making us the scapegoat. It's just not comfortable to be at WSLO events anymore. Trying to be at the victory brunch this year was just almost uncomfortable and hostile in the environment when I was there. So I think some of that just needs to get ironed out, and a little bit more representation from the men's community, and try to smooth the feathers that have been ruffled, and stop trying to just scapegoat, and make sure that if there are problems that they're addressed at the individual level and not at club level.
Thank you, Kelly. Can I ask a question?
Sure.
What in those spaces made you feel uncomfortable?
Well, I think just a lot of, just the sheer attendance from the men's community was just down because, of conversations and words and people's understanding of the current situation, not wanting to subject themselves to that much animosity. They just didn't want to come. And frankly, none of the title holders except for AJ introduced themselves to me. I tried to get on a Boot Blacks list, and not a single member from the community was allowed to sit for any of the Boot Blacks that night. It just felt very uncomfortable and unwelcoming. There's also a schism between some individuals in the rest of the community about police involvement and what constitutes good behavior when dressed in full bluff leather, and when they're cop inspired. that has been, cops and military is the backbone of where the leather community, or at least the men's leather community, started. It's a little upsetting and a little concerning that a very small subsection of the new generation coming in, I can understand that they're upset about cops, triggered about cops, but not all cops are bad. And, our history, at least in the men's community, has been about being hyper masculine and wearing our leathers, and that involves sometimes wearing cop inspired and military inspired uniforms and looks. And it's very disingenuous for new people coming into the community to not know their history of where we came from and attack individuals in the community for doing what we have always done. So that has made people feel very uncomfortable as well.
Sine, thank you, Kylie.
Sorry, unmuting myself. It takes some time. I am currently in the EU calling in. I am one of those new people in the community. I'm not a new generation necessarily. I mean, elder millennial. I hear what was just said, specifically around the animosity towards cop-inspired looks. I think that it is important for this community to recognize, especially since we are a white predominant community in what I'm seeing, the current conversations that are happening, and recognizing what we can do to make sure that our community is inclusive and welcoming to as many people as possible. And there were some decisions that certain members did take of wearing cop uniforms and being hostile while in those uniforms towards people who were uncomfortable by those uniforms. It's not about not knowing leather history. It's about also acknowledging American history and what is happening in this country. I would also like to state my observation during the leather contest. It being my first leather contest, being from and more closely tied to punk leather, the horror of seeing someone in skinhead attire walk across the stage and having been warned ahead of time not to say anything to anyone who might be doing and expressing problematic viewpoints, if maybe tone deaf, maybe they were unaware, but considering the hostility that was expressed towards me, unprompted, I don't think that it was done unintentionally. It felt very intentional of trying to ensure that people knew their place. And very much made me consider whether or not I wanted to be in leather community here in Seattle, and made me, I felt very uncomfortable. I will acknowledge that the leadership of SML in the past few months have been outstanding about reaching out to the people who had issues, to listen to what we were saying rather than just telling us to shut up and know our history. I do definitely want to acknowledge the current board of SML for those efforts, because listening to people when they say, hey, this might be problematic, helps ensure that everyone feels heard, gives everyone a chance to be heard, and helps heal some of the wounds that exist from before this contest that just happened, and some of the more recent issues that I know of and that I have heard of. So I just wanted to speak on that as someone who is newer to the community and was very, very troubled by the forcing of ideologies on us just because it was under the guise of leather history. That's
Thank
all.
you. Thank you for sharing your perspective, Thomas.
Well, I mean, not to beat a history horse, but Seattle does have a history with creating safe spaces, and that does include the police. And I'm sorry to say that, but I mean, having a past title or call their community members bastards is very upsetting publicly on Facebook and not being held accountable. And then that it's a destruction of our safe space that Jim Ritter started in 2014. And we're just throwing the cops, throwing our community members who serve. I'm a military person. I've served 10 years in the military. And it frustrates me when I see LGBTQ police officers getting the brunt of this. And it is very discriminating towards me as my service and the freedoms that I fought for. And then the destruction of these safe spaces that were created by our community members that wanted to create a safe space for the LGBTQ community. But now it's being turned around and it feels like it's being weaponized against people who are here just trying to protect us.
Kelly?
So, you know, in Nazi Germany, we had pink triangles, and we have a long-standing history of taking symbols that were used against us to make them our own and possess them so that people can't use them against us. So we started wearing pink triangles. We went through the military and cops, and they abused us and raided our bars, and we took their symbolism and used it as our own, much the same ways that the punks have. So a lot of that is a very long-standing history inside of the gay and lesbian community to take ownership of symbols and ideology and make it our own. And I think we're just continuing that as well. That's just my point.
If I
So-
may,
Go ahead.
I think that when those reclaimed or reutilized symbols then are used to intimidate within our own community, we're no longer doing that. My first week in Seattle, I was pulled aside by punks and told, here's what lace code looks like. If we ever see you wearing this, these specific lace colors, dressed in this specific way, you will be curb stomped. That's how you don't allow your community to utilize the symbols of hate against their own community. And that's what I saw happening this year during the leather contest and then during the Pride Parade, and then called out on Facebook afterwards by those very same people. I think that it's important for us to, yes, acknowledge when we're reclaiming hateful terms and symbols to empower ourselves, but it's also important for us to safeguard each other against hate within our own community.
Thank you. Just want to put out a question. When we're looking at communities that take those things that have been used against us and reclaim them, from what I know, it's usually those were targeted towards who are the ones that get to say what those new symbols stand for, how they're going to use that, and how they're going to move forward with that. So if we are creating this safe space in a world where in the last 5+ years, those symbols are ones of terror and horror for people, is there not a time where we have to look at that and say, is this what we want to publicly put out there as who we are, when we know there are members of our community who have suffered at the hands of people that wear the same attire?
I think that's a great question.
No, I'm not in any way saying that is not your kink. That's your thing. Great. But is that what we want to put out there right now? Is that the stand we want to have? That is what we're aligning with when there's so much pain? Ken, Jim?
So just as a note, you talked about the people who have been affected by these, in this case, authority figures reclaiming and repurposing. That is what, as Kelly said, the men's leather community did. Now things may have shifted further, but the men's community said this is what these symbols mean and how we're going to treat them. So you do have to include that as part of the conversation rather than drawing a line of 5 years back.
Understood history is what history is. And that's, I'm not negating that that's where that came from in any way. But think about how it impacts us today. And if we're trying to be completely inclusive, how does that impact? And what does that show to people who are trying to come into this community? When history, I mean, there's lots of things that happen in history that we don't want to redo. But, you know, where do we stand going forward in our public displays? So thank you all for sharing your perspective, and I think it's a continued conversation.
It looks like Dave Holt has his hand up here.
Oh, sorry. Hi, Dave.
Yes, I just wanted to say, as a healthcare provider who is taking care of several local and state cops, I think what is happening is stereotyping is happening against all of them, and I don't think that's fair. I've had, like I said, several, both state police and local police, who have done a great deal to help the LGBT community in Seattle and in Washington as a whole. So I think we need to look at it on a case-by-case basis, not as wearing of a cop uniform makes someone feel uncomfortable. Perhaps wearing of other uniforms makes other people feel uncomfortable. But again, we're coming back to stereotyping.
True. Robert?
Yeah, thank you. I think what I'm sensing here is what feels like kind of a dangerous precedent. If Winslow is going to start censoring what's acceptable and what's unacceptable dress in kink, I see that as a dangerous road. What's uncomfortable for somebody today may not be uncomfortable tomorrow. What's completely acceptable today may be somebody's triggered tomorrow. So where does it start? Where does it end? And I think that's part and parcel of how it's come to this point today. And I've followed Winslow's events from about 2000 or about 2015, and I've seen a growing animosity towards the men's community all along the way. I'm not quite surprised it's reached this point, and I don't really know how to go about correcting it. I think there's some conversations that need to be had on both sides of this about respecting each other. But I've not seen a lot of it being extended to the men's community. Thank you.
Thank you. I just want to be clear. I'm not at all saying WSLO is responsible for policing anything in any way, shape, or form. We are responsible for having this conversation. We are not responsible for judging who can do what. Moving forward, what has happened, this is why we're here, is because different organizations have stepped in to talk and put these general consensus on what could and shouldn't. I said this is a conversation and a place for us to start having a conversation. If you choose to do this anyway, to do something anyway, and there's a community conversation about it, and you know that people feel uncomfortable, and you know that people are, are not comfortable around certain things, letting people know that that's what's going to happen at an event, or that's what's going to be present, gives them a chance to make that choice to not be around you. But then you can't be mad when they've made that choice, because we've had that conversation that it could be a problem. It came up as to why, WSLO's responsibility to say you can't do something versus this can be triggering are two different things, in my opinion. Sister?
So I think that a couple things that really are feeling frustrated by this conversation. One of the things I'm really trying to figure out is, I will say as a Kingster, reality is I'm walking into this with a completely different identity as a weird representation of myself. But however, as a Kingster who does not engage massively with the men's community, organized men's community, it does always concern me that we use this word men's community and it's common front, when reality is I go to parties now y'all hear about. I play with people that honestly they don't want to engage with the men's community, and so that concerns me. I also am very aware that WSLO ultimately is having to create a shared space across communities. One of the things that really, and I guess the comment about men's community is united, is that is there a united community across these identities, or are there multiple communities that have to interact together? Because I'm observing immediately that there is distinctively, obviously, a very strong punk leather community here in Seattle, and I also observed that there are other people doing other identities, doing other things, and what purpose does WSLO serve in that? Because in my impression, WSLO to a certain point runs a contest, runs events that have to create common bond across communities. And how do we hold that without getting so stuck in these rhetorical emotions across these different pieces? At the same time, I'd also like to recognize that I have community members in the community that preface to say that I never want to trot on someone's freedom of speech and to express themselves. However, I also recognize that I observe that in public events, there has been negotiation to figure out how to better serve needs that are beyond that of just even the emotional. For instance, I have a friend who has a latex allergy that's really strong, and he won't go to public events that don't have that people wear a lot of latex, and he's going to stay away from a bunch of people with a lot of latex. How do you create a common space that's able to serve while that conversation is happening in a way that better serves the overall community?
We'll pick back up on that point, because I think that's where we're going. That's where we need to go. So, but I want to make sure everybody has the time to comment on previous. Thomas?
Jim was waiting for me. Actually, let him go.
Okay, sorry. Go ahead, Tom. Go ahead, Jim.
Actually, it's Ken.
Actually, it's me. I have a couple questions here. You wanted to know why the men were not people from SML and men in general did not feel welcome at the contest or any of the other things that you're holding. Jason lied about me and put it in print several times before the contest, told me I was not welcome, told Jim he was not welcome, repeating lies that were created. Then there's not one bit of truth in them. I've talked to you about how we can actually get to the bottom of that and get to the truth of it. So that's a glaring example of why the men are told, you're not welcome here. And if you show up, there's a good possibility that we're going to be extremely disrespectful and attack you and try to cancel you for things that we're going to create as a group, not even just one person, but as a group, and pile on and do things like disrupt and attack the Seattle Men in Leather's board meeting. So don't act all innocent in this and that you don't know what's going on, because that indeed is a form of lying. And the things that Jason printed before the contest repeatedly, nothing was ever done about that. You were president of that at that time. You did nothing. You know, and the things that happened at the contest were directly related to that as well. WSLO doesn't tell people what to wear. Well, it was your board member that attacked him very loudly in the dressing room, and a third party that had nothing to do with it was the one that reported that as well. So don't
Nobody
pretend
attacked
like,
anyone in the back room.
hey, I'm
I don't
talking.
believe you were.
Hey, I'm talking.
Okay.
So don't pretend that you don't know what's going on, because you do. And you know exactly what I'm talking about. And people like Laney and House of Shenanigans. It's like when I told you these people are bigots and you said, well, not all of them. Now, isn't that very telling?
Should I put us back on mute?
Yeah.
So at no point did I say I did not know that things happened. I did ask Kelly specifically why he felt uncomfortable. I'm not here to tell other people's stories and things that I have heard. I've heard lots of things, but that doesn't mean that wasn't part of this question. Part of speaking from the experience of direct experience and what I directly know is part of making sure that we're all heard. And so I would ask that if people would like to share their own experience and not more of what they've heard from other people, that would be helpful. Thomas?
Yeah, I mean, it's going back to something you said earlier, or what this conversation has kind of been on, is about WSLO is not going to police or make decisions. But that's completely contrary to running your contest. You as an organization have an obligation to your applicants to vet them properly, make sure they align with your values and the state values of leather. You know, you have an obligation to create that common space, as Sister Berna was just saying, for the overall community, and do so in an educational manner. This is going back to restorative justice as well. You as an organization have to engage in that, instead of saying we have no commitment, we're not going to make these decisions. You have to delineate something, otherwise you don't value anything. And it's very frustrating to hear someone say they're not going to make a decision, they're going to allow contestants run and humiliate themselves in front of everyone, when it was priorly known weeks before the contest that this was an issue and more vetting could have happened. So I'm very confused when you say you're not going to make a decision. You're going to allow people to throw themselves out to wolves, basically, and then go back and say, well, it wasn't our fault, it was judges' faults, which is a trolley. You know, it's the trolley dilemma you're giving us without taking ownership of the railroads or the trolley that you're driving.
So that's okay. So moving kind of forward into what WSLO's intention, and you know, when you say part of moving forward is making sure that we are this contest, that the leather week, that events are put on and intended, and those that are planning and talking about them, their purpose and where we're going is equally represented. And when I say making decisions, I feel like there's part of that assumption that we're not here to educate people on perception and things is not the same as telling them what they can and cannot do. If WSLO has a meeting to talk, which we did have a pre-contest, what does it mean to be a title holder? What does it look like to be a title holder, and what those expectations are, and what that image is, and what WSLO stands for? If that person still chooses to do what they choose to do and represent themselves, that is their choice. Unfortunately, we're in a place where there's this WSLO, we as an organization, we step in and not let people, where does that line draw, right? Like, do we let people like say, okay, well, we think this is a problem, so therefore it's a problem across the board, and don't express yourself, and don't do you, like, that makes it such a gray of area that puts us in way too much control over things that we aren't, that's not what we're an organization for. So Sinead, go ahead.
Did the WSLO board know? I've heard that the points were clear before the final night of the contest that a Mr. was not going to be awarded, that the interview points were so far down. Is that the case? Was that known that early on that would be the likely outcome, to have given the contestant an opportunity to do something different other than walk up on stage and be told at the very end, there's no winner, congratulations, everyone get off the stage? Like, that I'm a little bit confused about, is when that may have been known and what could have been done to handle that situation a little bit better.
Contests generally do not do that.
They don't do that?
They generally don't take aside a contestant whose initial scores are too low and like bop them out. I'm sure
Okay.
it has been done, but it isn't something that's generally done.
Board members.
Okay, because I've heard that sometimes that can be done. So I wasn't sure.
So I will say that from WSLO's perspective, the judges turn their scores in to the tally masters. The tally masters tally them. No point in time does the producers or the board know what those scores are until they are completely tallied.
Okay, thank you for explaining that.
Have we since felt like there should be included a practice where once those are tallied, the producers are notified of those placements and given and are able to approach those people before they go back on stage as a new practice? Yeah, because that would be the kind thing to do, but we don't know beforehand in any way.
Okay. Thank you for explaining that, and thank you for also explaining that you are looking at that situation for improvement.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Let's see, Kelly?
Yeah, I'll just say that that whole situation is a lessons learned that's repeated itself, unfortunately, 2 or 3 times now. And we still haven't learned that lesson, that essentially we should be evaluating whether they have enough points coming out of the contest and giving them an option which we have actually successfully implemented at least once that I'm aware of, but
SML contest 2015.
Yeah. So, but yeah, we just keep stumbling on that one, and we need to do better, because it's if they don't have the points coming out of the contest, to ask them to go through the night of the contest is very disingenuous.
Jay Lita?
I just wanted to speak on, I've been part of a lot of contests outside of Washington, not necessarily just Washington State. And I've been through contests as a judge, and I've been through contests running where somebody doesn't make points. It happens more common than people think. But typically, like was said before, the points have gone to the producers ahead of time. And then that's typically when you see somebody, they announce that they recused themselves from the title, or they had a family emergency so they couldn't run, or, you know, they give the person an opportunity to like give an excuse as to why they're not going to continue running. Nobody really just comes out and says, yeah, they didn't make points, they suck, you know, like that's not normally the rhetoric that you hear. And I'm very glad that that's being looked at, because whether the person made points or not, it could have been handled better, right? We all know that. And it feels good to know that going forward, and the fact that we're having this conversation publicly, there's now accountability for that, right? So like if we go in the contest the next year and the same kind of whirlwind happens at the end, then we can come back and say, oh, look at this board that's had this for a year and they did the same mistake again. We're dealing with this was the first year that this board put on this contest. So of course there was going to be screw ups. But I really just want the focus of this conversation to be on, okay, we've set these expectations. This is what we're going to hold WSLO accountable for over the next year. What does that look like? And how are we as a community either going to step in and help or step back and leave it alone?
Thank you. Squirt, did you still have a question or comment?
I did, but after what Jay just said about redirecting the conversation to what role WSLO plays in the community, I don't feel that my comment is relevant anymore.
Thank you. Okay, so moving that direction. So we as a board to have kind of discussed where we see our role to be with everything that is out and all the different organizations, and how we want to move forward. And a big part of that is wanting to move forward in building leadership and building title holders and building people that know how to run fundraisers and how to have these difficult conversations and how to bring community together in that way. So what we would like is to invite members of all of the organizations that are part of this Washington State community, not just Seattle, but all of Washington State, to come together and talk about how we can support each other and how we can show up for each other. And so that when we come to the contest, there is an understanding that the greater community is what decided who we selected as judges, what our standards, what our expectations, and it's very clear so that when things happen, we are ahead of it instead of trying to play catch up and trying to fix it after the fact. So we would like members of the community to step in and help with this process and what this looks like. Jim and Ken, go ahead.
Just as a general question, what is the current financial status of WSLO? I'm wondering if it's even stable enough that it should go forward. And I'm not asking for a specific bank balance, but your most recent treasurer is no longer on the board, as I understand it. You were you had told me that that it was tight about whether this year's contest would occur because of the sponsorship relationship with Columbia Distributing. I believe that's correct. You can correct me if not. I'm just wondering, has there been a recent audit of the WSLO books? Where does WSLO stand financially in terms of being able to do an event next year?
So at this point, without any future fundraising and sponsorship, WSLO could pull off a contest. Finances are not in question. Are looking forward into what it looks like for next year and what sponsorship looks like, were in part because of wanting to get out of bars. And a lot of our sponsorship has been from alcohol related products. And so in looking for different sponsorship so that we are opening to community members that don't want to be in a bar, that are, those members that want to come to the contest, but, where a bar is not a safe space for them. So
one additional question there. Having been involved with putting on weekend events elsewhere, just as a rough number, what does it cost to put on Washington State, the Washington State Leather Contest, the Leather Emerald Awards, all the pieces of that? I'm just looking, vague numbers, like $5,000, $25,000.
our ongoing sponsorship with Columbia has been $5,000. Which is why finding another sponsor of that kind of size is going to be, an adventure that's going to take more than a couple of people to do it, right? So we want to make sure that people that want to be in community and want to help can. So not just in looking at expanding board positions, but also looking at people, because there's plenty of people that want to help but don't want to be on a board per se. So having committees that are going to take on different aspects of the contest, to make sure that we are covering everything, between outreach to Eastern Washington for accessibility concerns and assessing the contest and assessing the location, assessing all of those pieces. So there's lots of ways that community is going to be able to be involved moving forward that we haven't really tapped into in past, because it was just the board made all the decisions on all the choices.
Thank you.
So we want to make sure we open it up to more than that. Anybody have any?
One thing that slipped through there is, when was the last audit done on the WSLO books?
Following the contest.
Following this year? And was that done internally, or was there external connection? Was somebody external to WSLO involved with that?
No, we are a community organization of volunteers. This is not a publicly traded situation where we have an accountant that goes through
what I
our
mean
books
there
like that.
is good practice for most organizations has been a annual or biannual audit of the books where you're involving somebody who isn't on the board to oversee that audit and to be involved with it to make sure that all the bases are covered.
No. That is not a practice that has been in place at all from the time that I know of this
Okay,
board.
thank you.
What's the process that WSLO is going to be taking for accepting new board applicants? Is there going to be an application? Is it going to be posted publicly? What positions are being looked for? What committees are being formed? Or is that still all in the works?
No, there is a basic application. It's really just why, why do you want to do this kind of, who are you and what do you hope to bring and what talents do you bring to the board that you want to share with us and the community. It's really, we are going to be looking forward in having people who want to be interested contact us, and we'll have a conversation to see how you fit. And it's going to be really about making sure that we have people that really want to be part of it and not just want to say they're on the board. We don't need people that just want to be on a board, but people that want to work on different things. Some of the committee work that we're working on is, the accessibility, the outreach, people to man our the marketing of the contest, of events, keep track of our calendar of what's happening with our title holders. Really at this moment, our focus is in supporting them right now until planning starts for the contest probably in September. So really making sure that they are supported and that they are able to have a successful title year as we go forward. So that's where our focus is at the moment. But yeah, there will be the option of people applying or wanting to be involved and just reaching out and letting us know. Thomas?
Yeah, I think it's a little kind of early and a little inappropriate to be asking for assistance, help from people and your community members that you've actually harmed, and there's been no public apology. Even to Jim and Ken, who are sitting in this room right now, there has been no public apology to these individuals. I mean, to my own relationship with WSLO and hearing gay cis white man and the negativity behind that name and that identity, there has been no public display of remorse or we made a mistake, we did things wrong, we need to move forward in a different direction. There's only been, hey, we're doing different things, and there's been no accountability by WSLO for their actions in the recent past. And now you're just saying, hey, we're moving forward and we need help. I think it's very inappropriate and insincere at the end of the day.
Kelly?
I was just curious with so many changes, who are the 3 people that remain on the board?
The current board is myself, Jason Houston, Finn, and Lamalani. There's 4 on the board currently.
Okay, thank you.
Who is Finn? I'm not familiar with the person.
Who is Finn?
Yes.
Is
yes,
a
who is Finn?
person that works on the board, is a community member that is working with the intention of assisting with the website and that management. That is their particular role. So in terms of Thomas, and your question of acknowledgement of wrongdoing as far as the WSLO board is concerned, I believe I stated at the beginning that we've made some mistakes over the last year. I know that in talking with Ken and Jim directly, that there is some work to be done to kind of address how they were not heard and how things were handled. And that is still a process in terms of things that were done incorrectly. I believe I can say one of the biggest problems was that they were not heard or asked input or given a chance to give their own defense when allegations were made against them. And that was wrong.
But
So-
now you're stating it's wrong. You have public posts up on Facebook, yet you have
We do
not
not have any
refuted those.
public posts. Do not have any public posts regarding them on Facebook because I took them down
When
before I
did you
had
take those down?
conversation.
I saw them today on Facebook. They're still
Um,
there.
I will double check that because
But
I
still,
intended
you
to
made
take them down
you
because of the conversations that we had and our intent to fix the fact that they were not heard in this process. And there was things said about them that they didn't have a chance to defend themselves against.
Yeah, but even deleting a public statement and having a "I'm sorry" here does not resolve a public statement you made in the past. You have to go back to your past and resolve that and make it public to everyone who can read it again and say you were wrong. And that's what accountability looks like at the end of the day. I'm sorry, but that's what it is. You can't go there and say, oops, I made a mistake. Let me delete that mistake from my life. It doesn't work that way.
And both of those
You as an
posts are still
organization
up.
need to be held accountable.
Okay.
And doing so
So-
is going public with an apology like you did with your accusations.
So I will like to say part of that resolution and part of that conversation is a conversation between WSLO, Ken and Jim, and SML that has not been finished. So there's not a public statement to be made until those conversations are done. Because we came to a agreement and we're still working through that process. As far as
I
I'm
don't-
concerned, that is not, I mean, doesn't mean we're not wrong, but it does mean that the resolution is not finished.
I think Ken should say something about this, honestly,
Go
because this
ahead.
involves him and I don't think he agrees.
I think you are the biggest sidestepper I have ever met in my life. I applaud you for your political prowess and talking circles and not taking responsibility and not even addressing that Jason made all those comments or the things that Lainey did or Toby or Pickett using your, that y'all allow that one to use your name. It is just ridiculous. I gave you a way to talk to Jenna, the one that made the original accusations, to get to the root of the matter and to both of us to do a lie detector test. And I'll take responsibility for anything I fail. If they do the same, you never even returned my email. Nothing. You give no feedback. You do a little sidestep, and that's it. I don't see that WSLO has a way to even move forward until they hold themselves accountable. Because this is just ridiculous.
Annie?
Taking personal attacks aside, turning this into a witch hunt for WSLO and not looking for a path forward is not helping anyone. I understand revisiting the past to get a perspective on what is currently happening and what the plan of the future is. But at the end of the day, there has to be a better path for the community as a whole to try to resolve this. I understand that many people have been hurt by WSLO's decisions in the past. What I have been hearing this entire meeting is they're trying to find a way around it, trying a way to change it. The board that is there now is not the board that has been of the past. They can be the same thing that has been said previously in a statement here about SML. There is things going on and we need to work to a future. I understand that there are hurt feelings. No doubt. I have never questioned that. I have never questioned that there hasn't been said that has stuff that needs to be done. But please, in a civil manner, please bring it up and be very cautious about making yourself look worse, even while proving a point.
Quite frankly, my dear, I don't care what you think, because I know what you've done. I know how you badmouth people behind their back, and I know how you give absolutely no support to SML members unless they meet your approval. So, you've got other members on the board with loose lips that say shit that they shouldn't. So I know a lot about you.
That's great.
So
But that's my own personal feelings.
Just because it doesn't affect you directly doesn't mean that it's not important and we should just move on. What a horrible thing for someone to say that supposedly represents a large organization. How very, very disappointing.
Sister Brenna.
I think that this line of rhetoric around this personal slight is unproductive in many different ways. I would observe that a lot of the accusations accused in the public statement, I personally have observed from 10 years back, way before any of these other accusers, and not those accusers. Because believe me, some of those accusers I disagree with, I vehemently disagree with. But also remember that ultimately, we have to move forward in addressing the issues that were resolved in the first place, that we brought forward in the first place. Because I do think there's a certain level of truth to accusations made. And yes, you can come after me all you want, honey. Come after all you want. So, also, please do not use condescending tones, especially towards your other memberships of your other organizations. Because personally, for me, you'll never see me talk to another sister like that.
Well, I think the unproductiveness is here is because once parties feel harmed, yet there's only a private apology right now. And in order to move forward, you can't, I don't understand why we're, again, not having transparency towards community. You're able to privately say, I'm sorry to someone, and then claim transparency, but then not want to engage in transparency. We're adults here. Either you say you harm people and you go forward. Exactly. This is unproductive because you have someone that, like we were talking about earlier, people in certain outfits and how they've been harmed by those type of groups of, military or police or whatever not. And how do we make common spaces for people? We have people in the room here that have been harmed by WSLO, yet WSLO wants to just make private apologies and not really engage in that community space and that safe space for the community and show that they've changed and they're a different board by doing things different. They're still doing the same things they did in the past of just, oops, sorry, we made a mistake, brush it under the rug, keep going on. Oops, we made a mistake, brush it on the rug, let's carry on. So to say this board has changed is really absurd to say that because it still has a lot of the same members on it when they were making these mistakes. So, and they still unwilling to publicly apologize for those mistakes. I find that very disconcerting for leadership in our community to take that type of stance and say we've harmed people while there's a history on their Facebook page of saying I'm sorry to a lot of different people, BIPOC community, X, Y, and Z judge, this or that, there's a history of continually apologizing publicly, but yet in this situation, we need to just move past it. That's what I'm hearing. Every other caveat, a person gets an apology, except for the gay cis white man at the end of the day. And I'm sorry, that's what I hear from WSLO consistently. And people who are very close to WSLO is gay cis white man is a problem, blah, 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 blah. We don't believe in discrimination, but yet we'll be bigots. And that is a huge problem. I've seen the emails. I've been privy to the emails when I was building the website of how the board engaged, especially, and no one was challenged. Using race and gender is inappropriate when qualifying new board candidates, and it was done. And yet no apology is being given to community members because it's always in private. This is how WSLO handles things, is a private matter, and I'm done with it. I'm done with the obfuscation of reality. And you guys need to be held accountable and accept the reality that you have harmed your members in your community, and they deserve that public stand up and saying, we're sorry and we'll be behind you. And we need to change what we're doing. Just privately doing it, yeah, this is not going anywhere, because people in leadership do not want to be held accountable right now. They just want to move past and find help from other people to fix their problems that they should be fixing right now. And it's unacceptable for leaders in our community to be doing this.
Does anybody have anything else they want to share of their opinions?
Just that I'm happy to help you with messaging on that when you're ready to, Yolanda, just so long as it doesn't involve blaming SML for pieces of it that aren't SML's fault.
Okay, anything else?
Moving off of this subject somewhat, there was a formal complaint filed against WSLO back at the beginning of April with the threat of a potential lawsuit. That's been 14 weeks that it's been under investigation. That seems to me like plenty of time to interview a half dozen people to get statements and come up with a conclusion. Can you tell me what the current state of that investigation is, or has WSLO just been sitting on it to make it go away?
Can you be more specific?
Sir Chris's complaint about the doxing, about the behaviors of the Judge Ferris Oxide, about the backstage encounter with Dr. Danger and Pickett. There were a few other things in that as well, but that has been out there. And the last time that it was asked about, it was, that's under investigation, we can't comment. It's been 14 weeks. It's about time for you to comment.
So unfortunately, the person that made that complaint won't talk to us. So the complaint was filed, sent in. People were talked to and that were at the contest, that were part of different conversations, but the person who filed it will not talk to us. So I feel, and we talked about, if the person involved wants to talk and give their side and what their actual their side of the conversation, then we can conclude it and make a statement to it. But if they're not talking to us, there's not, like, I don't have his side. Like, just be honest. Aside from the original complaint, I don't know what happened. I was not there. So I need his side.
I will be happy to try and work with Chris and Grant to get a statement for you. You just need to ask people who can connect with them.
It's the same thing.
I asked them, and that's, I mean, I've sent messages to them directly asking them. So that's my responsibility, and I have done that. Thomas?
First of all, technically you don't need to be talking to him. He's already made a statement in a grievance letter. So he's already put his facts out there that he sees it that way. It's up to you to validate those facts or not if he doesn't want to talk to you. Okay? Robert Rules of Order has a lot to say about people outside of your membership not wanting to participate in investigations. So let's start with that. Secondly, You at the brunch during the victory brunch stated that WSLO was going to conduct an investigation because someone had lost. It wasn't until the grievance letter came across your table did you actually decide to actually go public with an investigation. You stated at the brunch publicly that an investigation was going to happen and that you're going to get in touch with community members in a short time and talk about it. It's not until now it's happened, and we've been waiting a long time. But so your facts are a little bit different than actual reality.
Really?
Can I ask what the initial complaint was? Because I don't actually remember hearing that at the brunch of an investigation. I saw the post on Facebook a little bit after the contest, but I don't actually know officially what the complaint was, just that a complaint and possible lawsuit. And from there, gossip of the community. So I don't even know what that complaint was officially.
I don't think this is the proper venue to discuss the details of that. It should suffice to say that a complaint has been lodged. A statement from WSLO said that is being investigated, and there's been no result from that at this point.
Kelly?
I just, maybe a recommendation for WSLO would be, in terms of this matter, that engaging in a third-party neutral mediator might be something that would be beneficial for you. Just an observation.
Absolutely. And we did reach out to start for that process, and we're given recommendations from a third-party organization on how to move forward. So I'm taking in everything that you all are saying, literally, generally. I do not have an answer for everything right here, right now, as to how things are going to move forward in terms of the request for an apology, in terms of releasing the context of said complaint, as well as addressing some of the issues that were brought into the complaint. The complaint that was made by Mr. Contestant, as far as the contest and information and how that was handled, have all been those conversations have been had. There were members of the community that were there that have spoken up about their experience and about what happened and what things that happened at different levels and in different exchanges. So those conversations have been had. So we will look at how we address that moving forward to make that just kind of resolution, so that that can be closed as we move forward. And release that information as to what the findings were. Even if that means without the actual chance to have that conversation with the people that made that complaint. Unfortunately, in the conversation with how things were handled by WSLO in relation to things that were said back in March of 2020 with relation to Jenna and the Ken situation. It is another case of that we cannot make that person come forward to the table to have that conversation. And so things have to be just handled as best they can when not all parties are wanting to communicate.
Let's start with the statements that Jason put out that were on your, as a matter of fact, I believe they are still up now.
Okay.
So,
Removed.
okay,
I'm looking at it right now.
Refresh your page. I deleted them about 10 or 15 minutes ago.
Oh, well, that's convenient.
so you can't make a statement with concern to the thing that began all this, but you certainly can make statements concerning how WSLO's board has handled this up until 2 weeks before the contest, when y'all should have been focusing on what turned out to be a disastrous contest instead of attacking me and Jim. And you won't make any statements about that?
The conversation that started that was part of, I'm not even going to say that started, some of the concerns or and complaints were there and are still there. And like when moving forward and like we're talking with you, having a chance to have those conversations with people directly to say, okay, this is what has been brought to us, where people have said they feel like there's a safety issue, and giving you the chance to speak on that was not done. And having a chance to have a conversation like the conversation we're having today, which can be hard, but it's still a conversation that has to be had, has to be done.
What about the statements that Jason put out there repeatedly, right before the contest? I've asked you several times, even today, address that. Please don't sidestep, because I'm so tired of that dance.
So I will say this. I understand that it sounds like sidestepping the conversation. And part of it is processing the information for me personally and being able to come to a truthful response that is inclusive of everything that you're asking of me. So I need a moment. I need a moment to do so.
So you've known about those comments since they were made. And they are harassment and abusive. So that should be pretty clear. I mean, I don't understand what you have to process, that you've known about these since the moment they were made, and they were obviously harassment and abuse, and yet you won't even address that. I shudder when I think that WSLO thinks that they can teach leadership. It's just mind-boggling.
Can I say something real fast? I think the issue here is the fact that WSLO decided to step outside their mission statement and engage in policing community when they've been given complaints. WSLO has no members except the board. Why is WSLO taking complaints and then turning around and making those complaints public without engaging in their mission, which should have been in education? and resolving things through education, maybe restorative justice. I think the problem and why we're heading butts right now is WSLO is operating outside their mission statement. They're fielding complaints from the community and acting like it's their duty to figure out how to solve those complaints. Your duty is your mission statement and the contest, not fielding complaints from the community because you have no members. That's up to those individual organizations that have members. And if there's a complaint against an SML member, that should go directly to SML. And WSLO should be directly going to SML. It should not be WSLO's responsibility to field complaints from all Washington State leather organizations and then to make determinations for those organizations at the end of the day.
True. Kelly?
I'll second that, you know, stay in your mission statement, and keep out of, I mean, don't be the police dogs. You know, the thing with Jenna, if someone felt unsafe in that space, they should have gone not to SML, not to WSLO, not to CPA, not to any of these organizations. Go to the bar who has security. You're in their venue. You're not feeling safe in their venue. Let them handle it. We don't need to be the police dogs and review and have to do all this bullshit about who's right and who's wrong. Leave it up to the bar. Leave it, whoever owns the venue is in charge of that. You know, it's their responsibility for creating a safe space. And if someone's violating it, they can throw the person out. You know, we should not be in the business of policing other organizations and making comments and trying to, you know, smooth feathers between two individuals that had a problem in the bar. Let whoever the offending party is that does not feel safe in that situation go to the security of the bar and let them handle it, because we do not need to be, you know, 2 weeks later, you know, having a meeting with these people present to try to like work through the details. Not our problem, not our mission statement. If they're not feeling safe, go to the venue and get it done in real time, and have the people who are there present, you know, represent their side of the story and let the bar decide. We don't need to be in this business.
So there are things that WSLO needs to do going forward. There are amends to some extent that need to be made. There are also, there are still other things that also need to be done, which is a legitimate question that I've asked people that have come to with questions or thoughts about where SML and WSLO work together. Can they? I don't see why not, but that's, you know, every organization has to pull together their membership and decide if they want to be part of working with WSLO or how that shows up. And where WSLO goes moving forward really truly depends on whether the community steps up to make this happen. This is not, you're, you know, Tom's right, we don't have membership. This is volunteers hoping to do something, and it has done stuff. And yeah, there's probably times in which, in supporting title holders that felt unsafe in situations, WSLO stepped in to more than they could actually manage. But where we go from here really depends on who wants to be involved in going forward. And if no one does, then that is what that is. I mean, and the people that do want to move forward and want to see where this can go will. And those who don't won't. Go ahead.
So what is your projected timeline moving forward? I mean, you've got 2 board members plus whatever fragment of Lamalani's involvement is there. Obviously you can't do a successful contest or any other events really with just the 2 of you. What's your timeline for seeking out new board members and onboarding them and everything that goes along with that? Because that would seem to be the next step, that or shutting WSLO down.
The timeline. Our intention is to have a meeting in 2 weeks for people who want to be part of it and who want to have any participation in how we move forward. We wanted to have this chance and this time for people to speak their piece and be heard. But then we have to start the process of moving forward. And what that looks like will depend on who shows up.
Thank you. 2 weeks out, it looks like a good next step there.
Sorry, I'm gonna step in here a little bit. There has been discussion about the title holders coming onto the board after their stint with the title, to giving the board members more support, as well as supporting the new people coming on as new contestants come and go. I was a member of WSLO's board, and I took a pause for myself, strictly because I had a lot going on in my personal life. I have 2 kids, right? So I took care of them. That's done. And I've been in discussions with Yolanda. They're grown. So I've been in discussions with Yolanda to come back on. Finn took a portion of my responsibility, which was social media. Jason was there during the time that that I had stepped aside for other people to come on. And I was in discussions with different educational organizations, as well as bringing on statewide communications across into Spokane, bringing in social media and input in, with Washington State being completely inclusive, not just strictly Seattle. So there's been discussions about expanding and including more people in and giving more people voices. So it's not completely undoable. Like we're bringing in third party communication for education and inclusiveness. There was I believe it's Cherub that does the education for inclusion. So bringing them upon, and educating and having that was a part of WSLO's inclusiveness. So there's a lot going on. There's a lot that's been in the works.
So I've told Yolanda that I'm gonna step back in and help out. Jason wasn't aware of this because we wanted to include a calendar event, different things that are happening, to having the board conversations open to the public. There's a lot of things for transparency that were going to be happening, especially with the new board. I was one of the members that wasn't being heard on the board a few times, and I was shut down for starting a Twitter, starting, an Instagram, and so that has changed since other board members have stepped off because they were stuck in this rhetoric of, well, that's just not what we've done before. So, I mean, there's a lot going forward that is in the works. It's going to take some time. I mean, 2 weeks is not enough time to get a lot of stuff done, but it's a start.
Yolanda, ideally, how many people would make the board manageable to prevent burnout and to make sure that you are having a good diversity of people's input? What's an ideal number? Is it 5? Is it 7? Is it 9?
So the way that it is currently written in terms of bylaws, which are also, as we discussed, needing to be rewritten, it is a board of 12. So ideally, with a combination of division of work and responsibilities and people that want to work on communities and not actual board members, I would say 9 to 11 would be a good number, ideally.
And the way we've sort of talked about this, and I've run into this issue across the other nonprofits that I work with, the other boards I work with, it's easier to staff committees than boards. So, we tend to think of it, and I think Yolanda would agree, as a lot of the work is going to be done in committees, and that allows people to commit to whatever part of the work they're willing and able and, skilled doing. So that's something we want to expand more is, committees versus having board members, have to do all these tasks.
And what if somebody were to say, hey, I'm going to commit to the board? What does that commitment look like time-wise? Is that like the monthly meeting, obviously emails and regular communication, but what does that time commitment look like for somebody that would be volunteering? Not on a committee, because I know the committees are kind of like their own little special pockets.
Right. So ideally, there would be the monthly meeting, as well as, communication as things come across. But with things being divided in committee, it would be mostly the monthly meeting, and then whatever committee, the ideal being that a board member would be on the committee to be able to bring back and report to the board as a whole as to what's going on in that individual committee's work. So there would be that expectation of participation in a committee as well as the monthly board meetings themselves. And then hopefully in supporting whatever in any way that we can, our title holder events and things that they are doing also. And that's more a show of support and whatever assistance they may need. Kelly?
Yeah, I think if we're going in like 2 weeks to sort of get a new board established, that also one of the key things to really look at quickly would be what are the policies and procedures for soliciting, selecting, and educating new board members, and try to establish a little bit more rigor around how a WSLO board is created and how it sits. Clear back from the Tim, Jeff, it was dynastic and nepotistic. It was them selecting their own people that they wanted to work with and forming it, and it truly didn't match the community. So trying to solve that problem, and also, you know, getting a standard policy and procedure in place to, like, how do you apply, how is it reviewed, how are people selected, you know, how many people, you know, what do you do with vacancies? Putting some rigor around that would be a really good thing for the organization.
Yeah, and Kelly, that's something Yolanda and I've talked about, both bylaws review, which needs to be done, as well as onboarding procedures. Because that's another thing that's been common across boards I've served on, is those onboarding procedures are not always, you know, well documented. So,
Oh yeah, no,
you know how that goes.
yep.
So the biggest thing is that we will not have the answers in 2 weeks. Let's just be real. But people that want to show up and help create those answers, that have that experience, that want to come to the table and say, you know what, I've done this. You know, I've been part of this rebuild and want to be part of this one. That's who will come to the table, and that's what we will work with to see where this goes. That's more of the focus, is to open it up and let people know that it's there, that we're looking for people who want to be involved, and have people come with open minds and wanting to be involved.
And it's a chance to determine our structure and our future.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So, anyone have any last thoughts before we wrap up this wonderful time together?
Yolanda, I appreciate all of the work and emotional labor that you've put in to this board from past, and, you know, making it go forward in a better way and not just giving up. I appreciate you. So you're doing a great job.
I would like to second that.
I would like to third that statement.
I think the thing is, hard conversations have to be had, because there is too much hurt and there is the emotional, and we have to still be able to have the conversation. So that is what I'm here for, to make sure that we are all being heard, and we will do our best to address all the things that were brought up in the next, you know, in this next coming up. And so Thomas and Ken and Jim know that those are active things that we will be working on. In how do we look at what was out there, what was put out there, and what we need to say publicly to address what was put out there. Okay. That's not just going to be taken as a lightly thing that's going to end in this conversation. Anything else, anybody, before we go? Okay. Well, thank you all. Thank you for spending this time. Yeah, learned a lot. Hopefully y'all felt at least heard, if not resolved. So we'll keep conversation going, and we will do this again, and we'll keep going. And hopefully those that have been impacted negatively from experience with WSLO in the past, both across all communities, because it has been all communities that have been impacted by WSLO actions in different ways, we'll be able to see that we're working towards a better space and building a wider bridge of community, and we'll show it in our actions, and that's all that we can do. So, thank you all and have a good rest of your day.
Thank you all.
For your time on this, Yolanda.
Thank you, Yolanda.
Thank you.